Okay, I was talking the whole time and my microphone was on mute, so I apologize for that. I just want to say welcome to everyone who has just come in. And I put together a brief presentation on a few things that I'd like to just share. It's not going to be a typical True Story and NBK 90 slide presentation, but just something that I put together that I think the community needs to discuss, possibly look into, and just maybe get a better understanding of what's going on and how we are wielding and using words. And speaking of words, there's no better person to start with than Noah Webster. So the name of this presentation is called Webster's 1828, Defining a People, question mark. And so we're going to dig in a little bit further about a few things, and hopefully you share this with other people. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. Like I say, this will be somewhat brief, but I hope you can get a lot from it. And like always, I'll do further research and do your own research. And yeah, take it from there. So welcome, and let's go. So that person. First of all, can everybody see my screen? Can someone just verify that? I think you can. Just want to be sure. Can someone just confirm that they can see my screen in the chat so I'll know that I'm not just anyone? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So let's go. This person. That is Noah Webster, born October 16th. The head is missing. You can't see the full screen. I think you can see the full screen. October 16th, 1758 to May 28th, 1843. Now, Noah Webster was an American lexicographer, textbook pioneer, English language spelling reformer, political writer, editor, and prolific author. He has been called the father of American scholarship and education. His blueback speller books taught 5 generations of American children how to spell and read. Webster's name has become synonymous with dictionary in the United States, especially the modern Merriam-Webster dictionary that was first published in 1828 as an American dictionary of the English language. That source is taken from Wikipedia, in case anyone wants to go and validate and verify this. That is Noah Webster, and as you can see, this is an interesting picture that we will go into a little bit detail on. You see where his left hand is placed. It's on a book. And that book has a image that some of you may have seen before. And there's a black man on his knees in chains, and the writing may be a bit small for you to see, but it says, "Am I not a man and a brother?" In the background of the scene, you also see 2 people working. One of them is clearly a black person in the picture. Now, why would Noah Webster have his hand placed on a book that he's reading with the image of a black man on it? Let's examine. Webster was also an abolitionist and founded the Connecticut Society for the Abolition of Slavery in 1791. Noah Webster, creator of the dictionary. So Webster was fully aware of Africans being taken from Africa and enslaved in America. In fact, he agitated for their freedom through speeches and producing literature. So the hand that he has, the left hand that he has on that book, that image that he has of that African, was an image that was used by many abolition societies and groups. Webster, the creator of this dictionary, like I stated, was an abolitionist. and he was fully aware of Africans being taken from Africa and enslaved in America, so much so that he agitated for their freedom through speeches and producing literature. This, I want people to take that into account. So he knows what an African is. He is aware of the slave trade, and he did something about it in his own way, which is to try to start this abolition society. This is one of the tracks that was produced, and it's titled The Injustice and Impolicy of the Slave Trade and of the Slavery of the Africans, illustrated in a sermon. And under it says, preached before the Connecticut Society for the Promotion of Freedom and for the Relief of Persons Unlawfully Held in Bondage. This is the organization that he was a part of, that he started. So he's aware of, once again, Africans being taken from Africa and brought to the Americas and enslaved. And by this, you see that he writes this track, or he didn't write this particular track. This track was written by Jonathan Edwards, but this is about the injustice and impolicy of the slave trade and of the slavery of the Africans. Let's go on. So Webster wrote a book titled The Effects of Slavery on Morals and Industry. And as you can see below, let me get my little pointer here. As you can see, this is by who? Noah Webster. And the same society that he helped start. So let's go a little bit further. Let's take something from the book. It says, this doctrine respecting the influence of slavery is verified by the general character of the Negroes in the United States of America. The natives of Africa who are introduced into the West Indies and these states are of different tribes and considerably different in respect to particular traits of character. But in general, we may observe with Monsieur Buffon, that the Negroes of Africa are a remarkably innocent and inoffensive people. Now let's just stop right there. So Mr. Webster, the creator of the dictionary and words, and who was looked at by many people as the preeminent person of defining things, calls the people of Africa, the natives of Africa, Negroes. The one who defines things that many people like to refer to as the be-all end-all for definition calls the natives of Africa Negroes, and not only that, but he is fully aware that Africans are being taken from Africa and brought to the United States as well as the West Indies. And he is also aware of the distinction of those people by his statement of different tribes and considerably different in respect to particular traits of character. Different African tribes are being brought to the Americas and to the West Indies. The guy who writes the dictionary calls those people the Negroes of Africa. So when he refers to Negroes, the dictionary man calls them Africans. It's another name for Africans as far as Noah Webster is concerned. Let's go on. So Webster knew the natives of Africa were taken to the Americas and the West Indies. Webster referred to the people of Africa as the Negroes of Africa. In 1828, Webster published his American Dictionary of the English Language. Although the dictionary was updated numerous times and words added and subtracted, many in the conscious community see this as the be-all and end-all for definitions. So with that said, let's examine the definitions of some of the words in the dictionary of choice for the conscious Black folks. You ready? Let's take a look at Webster's 1828 dictionary and some of the words in it. First word I want to pull up is African. Webster's 1828 dictionary, the dictionary of choice for conscious Black folks, has the word African in it. An African is a native of Africa. African as an adjective is pertaining to Africa. Noah Webster, the man who wrote the dictionary of choice for the conscious Black folks, knows what an African is and defines an African as a native of Africa. According to Webster, 1828, Africans are natives of Africa, like I just mentioned. Let's go on. Next word. This is a big one. American. Many in the conscious community like to point out this definition and refer to this definition and tell you this definition repeatedly, redundantly, and over again. So let's look at American and what Webster, the dictionary of choice for conscious Negro, says. First definition is an adjective pertaining to America. Second is a noun, a native of America, originally, and this is the point that many want to try to have you look at hundreds and hundreds of times. Originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. I'm going to repeat it because I'm sure people who are listening have heard people use this definition hundreds of times. We want to be clear on what Noah Webster, the dictionary of choice for the conscious Negro, says, because this is the one they want you to use. American, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Now, many want you to, when they tell you this, they want you to say, ha, here we go. So those Americans, the Europeans, took your name and took your definition and took who you are, and you are the Aboriginals and the copper-colored races. Okay. So according to Webster, Americans were originally Aboriginal and copper-colored. Yes? Yes. This is what we just read. So let's go on. Aboriginal. Aboriginal is the first original primitive. Aboriginal people are the first inhabitants of a country. Then it says Aboriginal tribes of America. The second definition is an original or primitive inhabitant. The first settlers in a country are called Aboriginals, as the Celts in Europe and Indians in America. So according to Webster's, the Aboriginal tribes of America were the first. Yes, that's fair. That's what he says. But also, the Aboriginals are the first settlers in the country, as the Celts in Europe and Indians in America. What did he call the Aboriginals in America? He called them Indians. This is the same dictionary and the same definition that they want you to look at. This is the standard for Black folks in the conscious community, yes? Yes. So this is what it says. But also, the Aboriginals are the first settlers in the country, as the Celts in Europe and Indians in America. Okay, Fair enough. I just want to establish that these are his definitions, his words, so I'm not changing anything. He calls them Indians. Okay, fine. Let's go on. According to Webster's 1828, the Aboriginals of America were called Indians, like just stated. Next word. Uh-oh. What does he say about copper? Because those Aboriginals are copper colored, correct? This is what they want us to tell you. He says, Latin, supposed to be called from Cyprus, isle in the Mediterranean. This opinion is probable as the Greeks called it Cyprian brass of Cyprus. In this case, copper was originally an adjective. But the color, a metal of a pale red color tinged with yellow. Let me say that again. It's underlined. A metal of a what kind of color? Pale red color tinged with yellow. So can we go back one? Let's go back to American. This is the one they want you to look at. We're going to take some words from here now, right? A native of America originally applied to the Aboriginals, who we have the definition before, or what they want you to see is copper-colored races. So what is a copper color according to Noah Webster, 1828 dictionary, because this is the same one that they want you to use. What color is copper according to Noah Webster? Let's go forward again. Not now. What color is copper? Copper, a metal of a pale red color tinged with yellow. This is not sleight of hand that I am doing for anything. This is according to Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary, the same dictionary that has the word American and copper colored in it. What color is copper? Pale red color tinged with yellow. So, according to Webster's 1828, the dictionary of choice for some conscious Black folks, Americans are the Indians who are of a pale red color tinged with yellow. Yes? Americans, according to Noah Webster, who knew the distinction between Africans and Indians, who he called Aboriginals, and also called them copper-colored, those Indians that he was referring to are of a pale red color tinged with yellow. According to Webster, the Aboriginal or Indians who are the copper-colored Americans are a pale red color tinged with yellow. I know I've been repetitive, but I'm being repetitive for a reason, so that you can go and look and see this is not sleight of hand or dictionary tricks. This is the same Webster's dictionary that many in the conscious community specifically want you to go and look at for 1828, and then they say that they are the copper-colored people. So if they are the copper-colored people, are the people telling you this of a pale red color tinged with yellow? You can answer that for yourself, for the people that you may interact with. But let's go on a little bit further. So Indian, I'm just going to go to the second one. We can all see the first one, pertaining to either of the Indies, East or West. This is where you get West Indian from. But yeah, second one says a general name of any native of the Indies, as in East Indian or West Indian. It is particularly applied to any native of the American continent. So he called those people who were native to the American continent Indians. Yes? Next word. Negro. He says, it's a noun. It is remarkable that our common people retain the exact Latin pronunciation of this word negger. It is remarkable that our common people, means common Europeans, retain an exact Latin pronunciation of this word negger. Now, in other videos, I have showed you that the original name for the African burial ground was called Berggraaf Plaats de Neger. And I've also explained that that word negger was a borrowed word from the Portuguese and the Spaniards. And you know the root of their language is Latin. So it says, a native or descendant of the black race of men in Africa. Let's pause there. So if it is called Berggraaf Plaats van de Neger, or the Neger's burial ground, who were those Neggers? They were Negroes, because it says, it's remarkable that this is where this word comes from. So what does he call this Negro? A native or descendant of the black race of men in Africa. So when we have Berggraaf Plaats van de Neger, and it is then changed a century later to the Negro's burial ground, who is buried in that Negro's burial ground? A native or descendant of the black race of men in Africa. Are they in Africa? No, but they are a descendant in the Americas of those people. He also goes to say, this is Webster stuff. This isn't, I don't necessarily agree with this part of it or some parts, but this is one that I'm using because this is the dictionary that people in the Black conscious community love to wield and use like it is the be all end all, the 1828 Webster's dictionary. So this is the one that we will use to look into. So he says the word is never applied to the tawny or olive-colored inhabitants of the northern coast of Africa, but to the more southern race of men who are quite black, according to him. Peace, everyone who has just joined me. So these people that he's calling Negroes are not necessarily North Africans, what he's trying to say, but the people of the southern race are below the Sahara who are quite black. Those are Negroes, according to Webster and his dictionary that everyone likes to wield around. And we know historically, and Webster knew as well, that the people who were taken from Africa were taken from that portion of Africa and brought to the Americas and West Indies. If you don't believe me, please rewind, because Noah Webster was involved in the abolition movement to abolish slavery for those Africans and their descendants. He's fully aware of where those people come from. So when they used Negro, they were talking about the natives of Africa as well as their descendants. And those native of Africa and their descendants were taken to the Americas and enslaved. How did he know that? Because he was an abolitionist fighting for the abolishment of that trade. According to Webster, Negroes are native or descendants of the black race of men in Africa. Right? That might be the last slide. I told you it was real quick. If you'd like me to rewind again for some reason, I'd be happy to. But I think that we see some clarity with copper. I think that's the one that people may be a little interested in. So I'm just going to back up just for a second. I think it was slide 7. We have Aboriginal. We see he calls the Aboriginals Indians. Okay. Which one was this? We have American. Here we go. Americans. A native of America originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races. So what we do is we look at, this is the question that I asked. Well, what color is copper? Is that not a fair question? If somebody says something is sky color, you want to go look up what color is the sky. Right? So what we do is we go and look in the same book. We look at the definition of copper and what he's referring to. And then we go to, what was that, slide 8? Copper. And this definition, once again, is from the same book. No. Copper, we're looking at Encyclopedias. We're looking at what Noah Webster in his dictionary says copper is. I'll read it. I'll read the whole thing because you can do it too, everyone. But I'm going to read it here. It's in my screen. Don't believe me? Go to Webster's 1828 dictionary. It's actually online. It says, discipline is probable, as the Greeks called it, Cyprian brass of Cyprus. And in this case, copper wasn't originally an adjective, a metal of a pale red, but he's using it as a noun. You see, what he says in the Greek case, it was brass and all that jazz. But he says it's a metal of a pale red color tinged with yellow. Copper colored. We know what colored means, for something to have a type of color. Can't use it by definition, but we get it, right? Colored. Copper colored. Has a copper color to it. So what color is copper? It is of a pale red color tinged with yellow. So I asked the question, are the people who telling you that they copper colored telling you that they are of a pale red color tinged with yellow? Let's read the rest of it. Now, next to gold, silver, and platina, it is the most ductile and malleable metals and is more elastic than any metal except steel. The most sonorous of all the metals, it is found native in lamins or fibers, and a gangue, almost always quartzose. It is also found crystallized, yada, 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 yada. But it is tarnished by exposure to air. And at last, covered with the green carbonated oxide. Copper in sheets is much used for covering the bottoms of ships, for boilers and other utensils. Mixed with zinc, tin, and zinc. It is used in enamel painting, yada, yada, yada. Mixed with tin, it forms bell metal. With a smaller proportion, bronze. And with zinc, it forms brass. When taken into the body, it operates as a violent emetic and also preparations of violent poisons. Yada, yada, yada. We can go to the other ones. Does he mention color anywhere else in this as far as copper? Consisting of copper. It's the adjective. That's how it's used. Copper, noun, a vessel made of copper, particularly a large boiler, formerly a smaller coin. My friend filled my pocket with coppers. Copper is a verb transitive, to cover or sheave with sheets of copper, as to copper a ship. So I asked again. According to him, the color of copper is pale red color tinged with yellow. So I ask you, are the people who are telling you that they are the copper colored people of a pale red color tinged with yellow? Because this is what he used to, let's go back up one more time, define what the Americans were. So we have copper, right? We know copper is pale red color tinged with yellow. So what does that matter to us? That matters because this is what he's using to define what an American is, what the original Americans are, right? We got African. I think it was this one, 7. We got Aboriginal. What's American? Come on, American. There we go. American. Remember, pale red, yellow tinged. So the Americans, according to Webster, originally applied to the Aboriginals. We know what the Aboriginals are. He's calling them the Indians, who are the native people of America, right? Or copper-colored races. So those Aboriginals are what color? Pale red with a yellowish tint. Found here by the Europeans. These people tell us, don't you see, the Europeans found these people here and they call them copper colored, and they're the original Americans, and they give us this definition from this year, 1828, that this man, Noah Webster, put together. Yes? So, yes, correct. When they call the Indian the red man, and all these names that they have for the Indian, when they call him the red man, the red power, actually, of Indian, the natives had of this and red that, and the St. John's Redmen, who was a basketball team for St. John's University before they changed it. And they had red faces and the Indian garb and crown on, for lack of a better word, I forget what it's called, headdress. St. John's Redmen, and all those other reds that you can think of. So, the Americans, though, this is the definition that we are given by the conscious Black people. They are the copper-colored ones, and they say, we're copper-colored, we're copper-colored, we're copper-colored. Okay, we get it. You're copper-colored. That's fine. But in that same dictionary, what does he say the copper color is? The copper color, I'll go back again. So we have American. Everybody who may be looking, take a look right there and get this in, get this in your mind so you can see it. I'm just going to go forward. Right? Aboriginals, we have that. He referred to the Aboriginals as the native people. He said the Indians, the dictionary man said, are the Aboriginals in America. And he called them the copper-colored races. Okay, so I know I'm being repetitive, but I'm being repetitive for a reason. So you can see this isn't sleight of hand, and you can also look these up in the same dictionary that is available online. So, is this the one? Copper, color once again, of a pale red color tinged with yellow. It's a metal, absolutely. But when he refers to it as the people, here's the color that we use, a pale red color tinged with yellow. Are those people telling you that they are of a pale red color and tinged with yellow? If so, don't argue with them. Now you understand that you are colorblind. And it's your fault. They are right. Sarcasm there. Right? So like I said, I didn't want to drag this out. I wanted to give a history actually on Noah Webster and his importance. I kept saying, like, we need to look into these people and understand what else they did, and you will find some interesting things. Like I said in the beginning, for those who may have missed it, Noah Webster not only made the dictionary, yes, and he actually made this book. This was the book, if you're interested. And this is most people grew up and learned how to spell with and learn how to define things with. It was called the Blue Book. And his speller was very important for teaching 5 generations how to spell. Right? Here you go. This same man was an abolitionist, and this picture shows him with his hand on the book that has the black man on his knee, which was a symbol for many of the abolition societies. It says, am I not a man and a brother? And he started the Connecticut Society for the Abolition of Slavery in 1791. I'll run through this again. So people who missed it. He was fully aware that Africans were being taken from Africa. Because then we go on to see later, if you fast forward, that we gave the next definition of who those Africans were and what they looked like and what they called them when they called them Negroes and where they were taken from, the southern part of Africa, southern in relation to across the Sahara. And he was one of the people who agitated for their freedom. And this is one of the books that was written by that organization. But forget about the organization, don't forget about it. But hey, what did he write? He also wrote The Effects of Slavery, and I highlighted this right here, by Noah Webster, same man who wrote that book. It says, counselor at law and member of the Connecticut Society for the Promotion of Freedom. That freedom he was talking about was the freedom of the African. This is a quote from his book, this book. This doctrine respecting the influence of slavery is verified by the general character of the Negroes in the United States. When we looked at the definition of Negro in his dictionary, who were they? They were the African and the descendants of Africa. So this is who he's referring to when he says Negroes. The natives of Africa who are introduced into the West Indies and these states. So they are taken from Africa and brought to the United States and to the West Indies. So some people are saying that the slave trade never happened. If the slave trade never happened, then Noah Webster is a liar. And why are you using his dictionary to define yourself? Noah Webster should be considered part of the Illuminati conspiracy to just put slavery in there, correct? Because he's clearly aware, according to him, that the slave trade did happen. And the slave trade that did happen was natives of Africa who are introduced into the West Indies and these states, and they are of different tribes. There were different tribes that were brought to the Americas. There were Congo, there were Akan, there were Ghanaian, there were Dahomian, there were Igbo. We can go on and on. There were 50-something tribes or more. So he's aware. And in fact, in this, the last highlighted part, he says that the Negroes of Africa, the man who uses and is the preeminent dictionary man, according to the conscious Negroes, conscious community, black folks. This is the one we all got to look at. He's the only one, as far as they're concerned, who has any defining thing for us, right? He calls them Negroes. And in his book, he says the Negro is from where? From Africa and his descendants. He says that the Negroes of Africa are a remarkably innocent and inoffensive people. If properly fed and well treated, they are contented, joyous, and obliging. If exposed to harsh, brutal treatment, their spirits forsake them and they droop with sorrow. Yada, yada, yada. This is him writing this thing to show that the effects of slavery is on the African. And so we'll go forward again. Like I say, for some people who may just come in, I'm going to just go through it so you can see it. He knew the native of Africa were taken to the Americas and West Indies. Yes. So if he knew that, and you're telling me that the slave trade didn't happen, please stop using Noah Webster for any type of reference or resource when you give me something to tell me your copper color and tell me to look in this 1828 dictionary written by him. We can't have it both ways. Let's go through this real quick. Webster referred to the people of Africa as the Negroes of Africa. This is how we define it, right? According to you, this is what we use. This is his dictionary was published, although the dictionary was updated numerous times, like I say, and words added and subtracted. Many in the conscious community see this as the be-all, end-all for definitions. So I said, let's examine the definitions in a dictionary of choice for the quote-unquote conscious black folks. And we went through African, a native of Africa, right? We went through American. This is the one. This is the big one. This is the big one. that we should look at according to the conscious black folks. So we did. And the American is a Native America. It says originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored people, races, found here by the Europeans. So we also have Aboriginals that we looked up, and we saw Aboriginal. An example that he used was the Indians in America. So let's just substitute Indians. We can do that, yes? Because I'll pull up Aboriginal. I'm not playing word games. So we say Indians, apply to the Indians, or copper-colored. So then we'll substitute copper out for what he says they are. So it would say originally applied to the Indians or pale red with a yellowish tint colored races found here by the Europeans. But now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So I didn't just play word games there. What I did was I substituted Aboriginal for Indian, and I substituted copper colored or copper for what he said. And then we looked up Aboriginal and we looked up copper. Now, so his Aboriginal, and he says Aboriginal tribes of America, and his example was what? Indians in America. All I did was substitute that out. And so what we did next, now that we have that, is we took copper and we substituted out because he says copper color. So if we say, okay, the pale red color tinged with yellow people. And what I want you to do is everyone who may watch this or listen, go online and go to Webster's 1828 dictionary, and for yourself, look up copper, look up American, look up Aboriginal, look up Negro, and you will see for yourself this is what it says. So according to that same book, the Holy Grail for defining things for the conscious black folks, who give you American to tell you, well, this is what the definition of an American is, and see what it says. Well, okay, let's see what it says when it comes to copper. Pale red color tinged with yellow. I don't want to drag this out too long. If people have any questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer it. If not, we can go on. I'll check in the chat if you have a question or two, and I can answer it first. If I can't, I'll tell you I can't. I will. So if there's any, are there any questions? Yes, no, maybe so. I'd like to say thank you for watching. You know that I always appreciate, you hearing me out. Please don't take anything that I said. I've given you the sources. You can look up Noah Webster. You can see his a question from Claim. Yes, Claim. Call me slow, but pale red is light and yellow is light. Correct? Yes. Yes, Rochelle. Yes. Claim. What about copper? Michael, we can build on that. That's a great question. This is my, are you asking my personal opinion why the Aboriginal movement has grown? No, Claim. This is the definition right here. Let me just answer one at a time, so when people hear it back, they won't think I'm all over the place. So the reason I use this, Claim, because this is the dictionary, and I looked up the definition of copper to see what it says as far as color. This is what he's saying: a pale red color tinged with yellow. So this is what he's referring to when he's calling people copper colored. That's why I used this definition. But in regards to Michael Phillips' question, and it was a question of why is this Aboriginal movement growing? This is just my opinion. You could take it or leave it. It is a number of reasons. This calling ourselves Indian goes back way longer than people understand. And it's something that we need to look into, because at one time we did it to get certain advantages out of the system. One, it was that the Native American, actually, believe it or not, was afforded a little bit more rights in certain situations. And so when people did this, they did this to try to gain some rights. Now, Gary A. Morgan, who I presented in the other presentation, he was actually one of our greatest inventors, and he invented the traffic signal. So one of the things that even Gary A. Morgan had to do when he processed and straightened his hair was to pretend that he was an Indian, so that basically he developed a scuba diving suit. And the scuba diving suit, to get, to get that even put out there, because he actually put it on to go and save a man's life or something like that. I forget the whole story, please pardon me. But he had to pretend he was an Indian to get that passed. And then later, what happens is there are Black people who are descendants of people who lived amongst the Native Americans. And some of those popular tribes are like the Chickasaw and the Muskogee in particular, and there are Creek as well. There's Creek Indians and Creek Negroes and what have you. And so actually, if y'all allow me to just, if y'all want to hopefully stay around for a few seconds, I could try to pull it up so I can just show you some of these things that I'm about to explain, if y'all want to stay around for a second. But we did those things because what was happening, and I feel bad for the actual Native Americans for this, but their land was being taken from them, from the Dawes Rolls and other things. And so many of the Black folks who lived amongst them, because they did live amongst them, but they were Indian by adoption. Some of them, yes, had made it with Native Americans, and the product of that were children who were Native American as well as Black. That's absolute fact, and that's been going on since contact with the African and the Native American. That's without question. But other was those who actually lived amongst those people who were adopted by the tribes, because there's certain tribes where you could be adopted into, and this is in particular with the Muskogee and the Creek. And this is what would happen. So they had been living amongst those people for decades. They had no relation to the Southern Negro, because their experience was further out west, and part of that was because of the fact that Native Americans did have slaves, as well as there were Black folks living amongst those people. So what they tried to do was, when the European was going out there trying to go for the right, this is where you get that $5 Indian term. And so they corrected that. There's plenty of a European man who goes out there and is trying to gain the land by pretending he's Indian. Absolutely. So what the Black folks do, not only the ones who live amongst the Muskogee, the Creek, and the other ones, but even ones that are now leaving the South and going out west, are pretending to be Native American. Why? So they could get land allotments. Why? Because the Native Americans were getting land allotments. In many cases, the one who came off the plantations in the South were not getting those land allotments. So this was a big motivation in claiming that you were Indian. And this also caused problems amongst the quote unquote real Native people, because they saw that this was going on. So let me see if I can pull this over here. So this is a news article from 1902, right? And let's just read part of it. It says, unlike the Cherokees, the Creeks made companions. Let me just see. Can y'all see this? Please let me know if y'all can see this, and I can continue. Yes? Somebody in the chat, let me know if y'all can see let's see that on the screen. I think you can. Anyone? Bueller? I'll take a yes. No? No one can see this? Okay, thanks for that. So yes, this comes from 1902. What does it say? Unlike the Cherokees, the Creeks made companions of their slaves. When the Negroes were freed, the Creeks adopted them as citizens of the tribe. The Creeks what? Adopted them as citizens of their tribe. For a while, Creeks and Negroes fraternized on terms of easy equality. But the full-blood Creek now gives the Negro the cold shoulder. Marriage between the full-blood Creek and the Negro has become a thing of the past. If there is hope for the Negro, surely the black belt in the Indian Territory is destined to prove it. Here, he is the landowner. The white man is his tenant. If the Indian Territory conditions have kept him back, surely Mr. Booker T. Washington and Mr. Dunbar, the Afro-American aristocrats in Washington, and all those influences which stand for equality in the human family will plead for independent government for the Indian Territory. Even if it be admitted that the white population has no rights which anybody is bound to respect, what will be done for the who? Creek Negro. This is why you start to see this at this point in time, because they're called Negro Indians and Muskogee Negroes and what have you. He has made no perceptible progress since his emancipation, but now he has wealth and undisputed possession of the ground floor. Michael, you see this? This is what was going on out there. Right? Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can get you a few more since Michael Phillips got me started on this. Just bear with me another second so I can pull it up and hopefully you can see it. Okay. This is from 1907. Okay. What does it say? United States Marshals in every district in the territory will tell you that this class is the worst of the new state citizenship, the new state being Oklahoma. A Creek Negro is a person who is of mixed Negro and Indian blood. And he usually has an allotment of land. This, in the measure, explains why so many propositions have been presented to the Constitutional Convention by Indian Territory delegates or prepared by Indian Territory people requesting the organic law to prohibit the intermarriage of the races. These conditions do not apply so largely to the Cherokee Nation because the Cherokees have held proudly aloof from the Negro, regarding him as an inferior and considering him as in the days when he was a slave of the Indian. The Chickasaws have intermarried but little, and the Seminoles, a very small tribe, have the largest percent of full-blood Indians of any of the 5 nations. You see why? We were getting land out there, right? So I can go into a few more if y'all just bear with me and show you what we were going now. See, Mike, I tell you, you open up a can of worms now. But since you brought it up, just so you can get an understanding of what we're doing, what was going on. Grandfather clause, and I'm actually going to go to the article, so hopefully you can see it better. What was going on. Right, let's go. All right. So, wealthy Negroes are denied the right of franchise by act of the new state, largest Negro population in the Creek Nation. The fact that on Tuesday, Oklahoma put in force for the first time a constitutional amendment disenfranchising a large percentage of the Negro voters of the state has focused considerable attention on the Negro question in the state. Oklahoma was not situated like her older southern sisters, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, etc., which have enacted legislation depriving most of the Negroes of the right of the ballot. These states had such a great percentage of Negro population that the domination of the white man was threatened by the numerical superiority of the blacks. Especially was this so in Louisiana and Mississippi, where 50% of the population are Negroes. Here, on the contrary, the Negroes number only 140,000, or about 8% of the total population. Neither are they as ignorant as the genuine Southern Negro. See the distinction? These ones were people who were out west and so forth and so on, who were taken African descendants who were taken and lived amongst the Native Americans, and they're comparing them to the Southern Negro. For it is estimated that here fully 80% can read and write to a limited degree. Nor are the Oklahoma Negroes so lacking in prosperity as the Negroes of the Louisiana and Mississippi farms. The general rule is the Negro works on halves or rents, only a small percentage on land. Here, a large percentage of the Negro population on the eastern side of the state being Oklahoma, have rich allotments from their Indian citizenship. And all over the state, generally the state nigger, as they call them, has prospered. This is going to become important and something I mentioned. This is Oklahoma. This should start be ringing some bells of what was going on. Oklahoma, we'll get to that in a second. That should be your key. Has prospered, as have nearly all persons who have been here for some years and have worked. The 1910 census shows that approximately 90,000 Negroes were on the east side or in old Indian territory. 50,000 in old Oklahoma territory on the west side. Of the Indian territory, Negroes, 60,000 are bunched close together in the 3rd congressional district within a radius of nearly 40 miles, in which the largest town is Muskogee. The 3rd district consists of the counties out from the Creek and Cherokee nations and Seminole County, made from the Seminole Nation. It would appear, therefore, that most of the Negroes of Oklahoma proportionally are in the Creek and Cherokee nations. A still narrower localization shows the Cherokee Nation counties contain no undue portion of Negroes, generally, but that the Creek Nation counties contain approximately 45,000 Negroes, and so forth and so on. Muskogee County, so forth and so on, right? So those African descendants and those people who lived amongst these people were a part of their nation, not through because they are the people, but it happens because Indians had babies by these Africans, as well as they lived amongst the people for so long as slaves, then as freedmen. This is where you get the term Cherokee freedmen, and then you have Creek freedmen, as you see right here. The Negroes in these Creek Nation settlements are usually what is in quotes? Creek freedmen. In the nomenclature of Indian territory, a Negro possessing the rights of Indian citizenship is called a freedman. All other Negroes are referred to as state Negroes. Hence, Creek freedmen, Cherokee freedmen. The history of the Negro in Oklahoma began with their introduction as slaves. All of the 5 civilized tribes had slaves. All of the 5 civilized tribes had slaves. Cherokees and Creeks had many. When the various tribes moved to the Indian Territory 3/4 of a century ago, this is 1910, they brought their Negro slaves along. At the time of the Civil War, these slaves obtained their freedom by the Lincoln Emancipation Proclamation. Here, the victorious Union went farther than in the southern state, however. There, the Negro obtained his freedom only. Here, his former master was compelled to grant him full right of Indian citizenship and consequently to share in the Indian lands. This was due to the fact that many of the Indians had proved recalcitrant to the north and went to the south. Yes? Are we seeing what was going on? So, yes, you may be Creek, you may be Muskogee, you may be Choctaw. Oh, I hope you would see that you were freedmen in some places, or you just lived amongst them, or yes, your ancestors may have had sex with them and babies were produced. Yeah. But you are distinct from the original quote unquote or Aboriginal Creek or Aboriginal Choctaw or Aboriginal Muskogee or Aboriginal whatever. Sure, you can have Indian in you, but these are the ways. Sure, you might have grandma, as they like to say, who say she was an Indian, but do you see why? Are we seeing why grandma may have said that? Grandma may have lived amongst those people out west for so long and been adopted to the tribe. We just read that. We just read that the Indian brought them into the tribe. Don't mean that you're the same. It means that you were saying under the name of Muskogee, Creek, Cherokee, Chickasaw, whatever, but you were adopted into the tribe. And you fought, and rightfully so, you fought for your rights to that land. This is the struggle that we need to talk about that we did, because yeah, we had to fight and it still goes on. We have to fight the Cherokee and the Chickasaw for our rights. Yeah. And we're not fighting against all the $5 Indians. We're fighting against those native Cherokee and Chickasaw who don't want to give us our land. And we rightfully are entitled to that land. I agree with that, but we're twisting the fight that we're having for some reason. This is why the Cherokee freedmen are fighting. Like, look, I've been in this nation, Cherokee Nation, for centuries. You may or may not have had me as an enslaved person, but I've been in this for decades at least. And now that they're allotting this land, give me mine. And yes, some of them may be half Native American. Yeah. But why deny the Africanness? Nobody said you have the right to, as someone who is half of anything, to choose whatever side you want. Sure. I can agree with that. It's people who may be a mulatto, some of them favor their white side. Some of them, they have that option, if you will. But the problem comes in when they deny the existence of the other side completely. Is it clearer on now why? I didn't want to go on off into this. Michael Phillips posed a great question. So I had these documents and I hope to bring them up so I can share with you. But I wanted you to see. I'm not making this up. Grandfather clause. You a grandfather for what? Land. And so I kept saying Oklahoma, Oklahoma, Oklahoma. Why? What comes in Oklahoma? That land that those descendants were getting, those descendants of Africa who lived amongst the Indians, who may in many cases been half Indian, do what? Now that Negroes have all this land, what do we do in Oklahoma? What do we do? Where's Black Wall Street? What was the film industry started for blacks? Oklahoma. Because the Southern Negro got with the Negro who was living out west, and they got this land, and they started to build towns. Because this land afforded them the rights and obviously the land to build towns. And out of that comes, where was Black Wall Street? So why pervert the story instead of us understanding what could lead to a Black Wall Street? And why was it there and not in Mississippi or Boston or anywhere? When we do our homework, we find that there were land allotments taking place. And so people who were leaving the South went out there, as well as the Negro who was out there, them two reconnect and do these great things with the land that they acquired in Oklahoma and other places out there, which afforded them to create industry, which afforded them to be able to attract other people, which afforded them to have banks and businesses that the European was mad as hell about, and led to the destruction eventually of that particular Black Wall Street, because there were others. But if we're stuck and clouded on this nonsense, we can never get to the root, understanding the great story that happened in Oklahoma and how it took place. See how much history we're missing out on by playing this silly game? Do we see? I mean, we can go on and on. You want something earlier? Don't believe the slaves? What does it say? Negro slaves to Indians, Seminoles, and Creek. This is from 1841. The principal cause which operates to cherish this feeling hostile to immigration. This is when people, Africans, and their descendants were going back to Africa. So immigration was actually Haiti. I'm sorry. When you go to Liberia and Sierra Leone's colonization, but this is Haiti that they're referring to, are first the fear that their reunion with the Creeks, which will subject them to the government and control of the Creek National Council, will be a surrender of a large Negro property now held by those people to the Creeks as an antagonist claimant. Thus, sir, we have official intelligence that the principal cause of the war was the fear of losing this Negro property. The property being you. This is from 1841. And we are led to inquire into the history of these conflicting claims to the Negro property between the Creeks and the Seminoles. The Creeks and the Seminoles for a war for you, trying to keep you enslaved. In the letter above, quoted General Thompson, speaking further on the subject, says, the Creek claim to Negroes now in the possession of the Seminole Indians, which is supposed to be the first cause of hostility to the immigration of the latter tribe. They were mad as hell that you were going to Africa and Haiti. This is 1841. Grows out of the Treaty of 1821 between the United States and the former, between the treaty between these tribes and the United States, that, hey, you won't be sending these people away if we freed them. Where would they be going? Liberia and Haiti. You want some more? Y'all can blame this on Michael Phillips, because I did not I did not, have this as a part of the plan. I just wanted to go into the Webster thing and just let people see that. But I guess this all comes to the same umbrella, kind of, when it deals with defining a people and how we defined ourselves. Yes, it gets confusing and murky, but that takes a little bit of work for us to figure out and extract the truth from it. Because there's a great story that we're missing out on. There's a huge story that we're missing out on. It's about our experience with all of these things. And it's unfortunate, because then we don't really get to understand what can make a Black Wall Street, how we survived through these times, what did we do to really make this happen, right? Y'all want a little thing about what was happening to the Black folks as they saw that we were doing our thing now, the Black ones, and especially Muskogee? Here you go. I'll share this with you. Some may be uncomfortable, but it happened. This is what they call Republican rule in Muskogee. This is what they thought of you because you were doing things like building Black Wall Street and having industry and all those things. These are the images that they portrayed of you. This is what they did because we were becoming successful out there. This is what they did. They thought you were coming through and taking over everything and would have them under their foot, under your foot. So they began to make fun of you in these ways and draw images like this. This is what they did to us. Don't believe me? This is from where? The Muskogee Times Democrat. What year? 1912. This is what happened. Because you were becoming successful in Muskogee. Those people who lived amongst the Native Americans and those people who came from South and went out west. And here's a little kicker as well. We were Republicans at the time. We were Republicans way longer than we were Democrats. Way longer. Yes? Or did I just make this up from somewhere and created all these newspapers and then created all the words that were in them? I wish not to fight or argue with anybody. I'm here to talk to people who are interested in learning the stories of us and our struggles and our victories that we went through. I wish not to get into anything contentious, but I know a lot of people may not know about Oklahoma, may not know about these things, and hopefully then you can go and do your research or at least have something to look at or go have a starting point. Yeah, and that's all you get for now. I'm not pulling. I got 6,000 newspapers over here and all type of stuff. You ain't getting all that. But anyway, I knew Clay would say that. That's my man, Clay. I can't lie. Yeah, so I hope y'all got something out of this. Please do me a favor at your own leisure. Go into the Noah Webster 1828 dictionary, and of course, look up American, but also look up copper and see what the color of copper is. Look up Negro, look up African, look up Indian, and see for yourself what copper color is. For the last time, this is what you will see right here. That's the definition. Copper of a metal of a pale red color tinged with yellow. So the copper colored people running around social media are the pale red colored tinged with yellow people. I won't drag this out to, hopefully you got something from it. If you're if it's interesting to you or you feel that other people may be interested in this stuff, please don't hesitate to forward it to them. I just want to say personally, thank you for spending some time with me. I really do, that you got something to at least look up on your own, or maybe introduced to something that you did not know before. Please comment, please subscribe, please like if you found this helpful. And yeah, just stay tuned. As you can see, I go live out of the blue sometimes. So make sure you have your notifications on and pass this along. Let's try to have healthy conversation, healthy dialogue, and each one teach one. And with that, I want to say peace.